All right. So today we're going to be talking about good habits that last. We do want to call your attention to some of the upcoming events and programming that we have. The Wellness Work Life Office and team do a phenomenal job of providing classes and programs and health screenings for everyone here on campus. And so we would love for y'all to take advantage of those. If you do want to take just a quick screenshot, I know these things are often sent via email in our newsletters, but sometimes it can be difficult to get to those in your inbox. So definitely please come visit us at all of our health screenings. You're welcome to sign up for more than one wellness class. You only are required to do one if you're wanting to get your benefits for the WellBeamer program, but we certainly want you to take advantage of as many as you want to participate in. And we also have these as archived on our wellness site. So you can go to wellness.ua.edu and you can see all of the archived talks. These become YouTube videos and live on our YouTube channel. So feel free to share those out or watch those later. And if you want credit, then you need to register like you have today and be here in real time. But we want this information to be widely shared with your friends and family in our UA community. And then we also, of course, have programming like Move Spring and Couch to 5K and Better Bites. And I've participated in all of those programs and they are fabulous. So definitely think about those. I see a lot in the chat, but I will come back to that. And Miranda, if you'll let me know if there's anything that I need to address in real time. So I always like to start out with a quote or an intention for our time together. And there's a quote by Mahatma Gandhi, and it reads as this: your beliefs become your thoughts become your words become your actions become your habits, and your habits become your values. Your values then become your destiny. And I think that's so true when we want to decide to, at a new year, make resolutions or new goals, and we have all of these great intentions for what we want our lives to look like, feel like, be like. We oftentimes just think about setting a goal or a resolution, and we don't really think about the other things we need to do to support those changes. So when we want to lose weight, which is a common one in the new year, when we want to start exercising more or start drinking more water, or maybe we want to sleep better, or maybe we want to manage our stress better, we really usually only think about the goal that we want to achieve. So we think, oh, I wish that I had better sleep. So that's going to be my goal for the new year. And we all probably are familiar with SMART goals and things like, setting reasonable, realistic, achievable goals that you can measure and that are specific to your, particular goal and that are, timely. Those are all great things that you want to do, but you also want to take it a step further and really start to think about setting yourself up for success. So I teach over in the College of Nursing, and we often tell our students we want to set you up for success. And that's what I want to do here with y'all. So thinking about how we think about goal setting is going to be a big part of that mindset. So we want these good habits that we're creating, we want them to last and we want them to be sustainable. We also want to talk about goals that maybe are habits maybe that we want to kind of get away from. So we're going to try not to talk about good or bad habits. We tend to, in the US, moralize everything. It's good or it's bad. But when in reality, it just may not be a helpful goal for you. It may not be something that's moving you forward. It may not be something that's sustainable, but it may not be inherently quote unquote bad. So my name is Abby Horton. I teach in the College of Nursing. I'm a registered nurse. I'm a certified health and life coach, which is why I'm here with you today. I'm a wellness class educator for WellBeamer, and I'm a WellBeamer ambassador for the Honors College. My contact information is here. You're always welcome to reach out. If you're like me, you probably think of questions or things you'd want to share after the call has ended. So feel free to use this email to reach out to me directly. So another good quote as we move forward: we are what we repeatedly do. So excellence then is not an act, but a habit. And so when we talk about excellence, when we talk about doing things well or doing things with intention, we often think about it as it's a choice in the moment. But really, we are a sum total of the habits that we do every day. And that's why it's so difficult for us to change, because most of the habits that we do, most of the actions that we take, most of the thoughts that we think, about half, 50 to 60% of those are usually things that we aren't even consciously thinking about. We get up in the morning and we follow basically the same routine every day. We come home in the afternoon from work and we follow basically the same routine. And so when we're not really thinking about our day-to-day actions and everything feels a little bit like it's automated, then we have to really stop and think, what do we want to change about our routine, about our habits, that's going to get us to the goal that we have? And so when we think about that, we have to think about the intention behind why we want the goal. So we often say that we want to lose weight. But really, why is it that we want to lose weight? Is it that we want to be healthy? Is it that we want to fit in an old pair of, blue jeans or pants or a dress or outfit? Is it that we want to be healthy because we want to be there for our loved ones? We want to see our children grow up. We want to be able to be physically active. Maybe it's that we want to achieve some type of, fitness goal. Maybe we want to run a marathon, or maybe we want to be able to play an intramural sport. Those are the kinds of things you want to ask yourself. And we call it the why behind the why. So why is it that you want to achieve this goal? And if you break down any goal or intention that you set by asking, well, why is that? Why do I want to achieve that? If you go about 5 layers deep, if you ask why 5 or 6 times, and you get to that kind of core motivation for why you want to do something, it's usually having to do with the way that you feel. It's not about something you really want to do. It's not usually about something that you want to achieve. It's really a sense of a feeling. I want to feel accomplished. I want to feel secure. And so you've really got to get in touch with those thoughts and feelings around the kind of goals you have. So we'll talk about why motivation is really not what you need to have to make these good goals and these good habits that we've mentioned. So some recommended reading, I would really start out with James Clear's book, Atomic Habits. It is one of the best books on habit change, and it's one that I found personally helpful on my journey for weight loss and wellness. And I'll share a little bit about that on the call. And his book was really inspired by Charles Duhigg's book, The Power of Habit. So if you have time, or if you have the desire to read more about habit change and motivation and discipline, these are 2 great books to start with. So The Power of Habit, I mentioned, when we think about our habits, we have had studies that have estimated up to 60% of our daily actions are really habits that are unconscious decisions. A Duke University study took a very conservative view and found in their particular study that at least 40 to 45% of people's daily habits and actions are actually unconscious decisions that we don't think about. So I'll usually give the example of Steve Jobs, the late Steve Jobs, Apple founder and CEO. He woke up and he put on the same outfit, the same work uniform every day, because he mentioned that with so much creative energy that he needed to use to be able to do his work well, he didn't want to have decision fatigue. He didn't want to wake up and have to think about what to wear, so he wore the same type of uniform, usually a black turtleneck and blue jeans. We see the same thing with Mark Zuckerberg and other people who are in the limelight, so to speak. And so they really got at this idea of, if we're having to make a conscious decision every day, we're going to have decision fatigue. We're going to make it hard for our brains to really think about the important things, because we're so kind of bogged down with the decisions we have to make in the morning that really don't matter. It doesn't really matter what you wear today to work, in terms of, obviously you want to be warm and you want to be dressed appropriately, but beyond that, it doesn't matter if you wear the black turtleneck or the blue turtleneck. That's not going to really move your goals forward unless you have a goal related to that. And so I want y'all to think about, where are there places in your lives where you can make some things automated, where you can make routines and rhythms that you don't have to think about, you just do them. And then I want you to think about the often more important things that we've already automated, where we're not doing as much daily self-reflection and we're not thinking about those decisions as consciously. And we're going to dive a little bit deeper into that as we go. So habit change is really the foundation for health and wellness. And while we'll be talking about health and wellness for today's context, this information can apply to any of your professional or personal goals. So, this doesn't have to be about a health or weight loss or wellness or fitness goal. This could be something that you personally or professionally want to work on. Maybe it has to do with, being a parent or a grandparent. Maybe it has to do with being a good neighbor or a friend, or maybe it's something work related where you're wanting to move forward in your career and you have some professional goals that you want to meet. So habit change is really necessary to achieve goals and to meet milestones. But having an awareness of your mindset and the thoughts that you think around those goals are as equally important. So habit change is really not about, motivation. It's really about discipline. And discipline comes in where you get up and you reflect on what you need to accomplish for the day, and you think intentionally about your routines and your rhythms that are going to get you there. So motivation is going to be fleeting, right? Motivation comes and goes. And it's really difficult to know why you're motivated some days and other days why you're not motivated, right? If you don't get enough sleep, if you get an email that's upsetting to you, if maybe you have a child or a spouse or a partner that is having a not great day, and they kind of throw you off track a little bit because you're having to help them with something. Maybe it's that you had a flat tire and you're ready to go for the day, but your motivation just kind of vanishes when you see that you're having an issue, or maybe you run out of gas or something like that. Your motivation is going to be really dependent on your mood and your situation and your environment. And we can't count on it to always be there, right? Some days we wake up, we feel really motivated, other days, not so much. But discipline is something that will always be there for us. If we are in the habit of having good routines and rhythms, things like you wake up and you brush your teeth. I imagine that if all of you woke up late today and you felt like you were running late or running behind, you probably still stopped to brush your teeth, right? You wouldn't leave the house probably without brushing your teeth for the day, because brushing your teeth is one of those first habits that we instill when we're children, when we're parenting a child, when we're taking care of a child, when we are the child. Teeth brushing seems to be the one main habit, and it's called a foundational or a keystone habit. So it's one that it's pretty universally accepted, at least in the US, that you're going to wake up and at some point you're going to brush your teeth before you leave. And so we do that even if we're running late. We do that even if we're stressed out. We do that even if we're not motivated, for most of us. And it may be a different keystone or foundational habit for you, but teeth brushing is pretty universal. So when we're going to talk about habit stacking today, that simply means taking a habit that you already have established. Maybe it's drinking coffee in the morning. We're going to take that habit and we're going to stack and add on other habits to make it easier for you to start to change the types of things that you do on your day-to-day basis. And that's where the discipline comes in. You're not doing those things because you feel motivated to brush your teeth in the morning. You're doing it because you've developed the discipline to get up and do that every day. And I always tell my students and the clients that I work with, knowledge does not equal habit change. A lot of times we know what to do. Most of the things I'm going to tell you on this call today, you probably know to do these things, but it's just a matter of intentionally choosing to make those choices. So it's just important that we recognize that we can know to do the best choice, the right thing, so to speak, and it not really work out for us. So we've got to have those systems, those routines and rhythms in place to support the habits that we want to create. And that's going to get us toward the goals that we want to achieve. So motivation comes and goes. So then let's think about how we can start to break the cycle when we're forming these habits that don't serve us well. So when we have a habit, whether it's getting a coffee on the way home from work, or maybe it's getting a coffee on the way to work, there's a cue and there's a routine and there's a reward. And when you have a cue, a routine, and a reward, it creates this habit cycle. So it's called a habit cycle or a habit loop. And what happens is you have a cue that triggers your brain that you need something. So it's an automatic, kind of mechanism where, maybe you are getting in the car and you normally have something to drink with you and you don't that day, right? So you get that cue that you're thirsty and your brain kind of goes into automatic mode. Well, where do I go when I'm in the car and I'm thirsty? And you think about it and you're like, oh, I always go to this coffee shop. So you're driving along and you kind of automatically end up in the drive-through line. Has it ever happened to anyone? That happens to me sometimes. And then you have the routine of, oh, okay, I'm in Starbucks or Heritage House or Dunkin's line to get coffee. And then you have this physical, mental, or emotional response, right? You actually drive the car to the drive-through and you have these thoughts that you think and these emotions that you feel when you start to smell the coffee and you start to get closer to the window to order. And so the reward then is when they hand you the coffee, right? And you take your first sip and you immediately, even though you've had this little micro sip of the coffee, you immediately feel better, right? Is it just me? I think we probably all do. And so that is the loop. So then you have gotten into this routine of having a cue, a routine, a reward. And at the center of it is really a craving. And the craving can be physical. So the craving can be truly that you're thirsty. The craving could be mental or emotional, that you need some stability. So when you have a mental need, like there's a craving for something that you always do, even if it's not physical. Maybe you're not really truly thirsty that morning, or maybe you have a coffee from home or a water, so you don't truly need this coffee. There's a craving for some routine and some stability. And so it just feels good to go and do something you always do, right? Maybe you see your favorite barista and that gives you a reward. Or maybe that coffee gives you a little bit of a caffeine boost and it gives you a true physical reward. And so when you have this cycle, the power of the habit loop is that it becomes so ingrained that you don't have to think about it. But that's really good when you want to create a healthy or quote unquote good habit. But it's equally difficult or challenging when you want to break, what we so call a bad habit. So when we have a habit that's not serving us, and it's not something that we want to continue, it can be really difficult to replace that habit because we have a reward system and a habit loop in place. And so to not do the habit that you don't want to do, or to do the habit that you do want to do, you've got to have this cycle. So you've got to look at what are your cues, what are your triggers. For a lot of people, it's having, snacks in the home if you're wanting to not snack. For exercise, a lot of times the cue will be that maybe you leave your workout clothes where you see them in the morning. Maybe you put them, on your bedside table, or maybe you put them in your closet where you can see them. So cues and triggers are not inherently good or bad. It's just the thing that usually reminds you to do something. And so you can use that to your benefit, because if you get in the habit or discipline of exercising every morning, that's going to be really helpful for you, even if you don't give up that coffee on the way to work, right? So what I like to encourage people when you're looking at habit loops, think about adding things into your routine more than you subtract. So I don't know about you, but if you think back to elementary school math, I think most people enjoyed addition and not subtraction, right? Our brains like to add things in. We don't like to subtract things. So when you're thinking about making choices and changes, if it is a health and wellness goal, instead of saying, oh, well, I can't have that popcorn at night when I watch TV before bed, or I can't have that soft drink, at lunchtime, or I'm not going to get that coffee on the way to work. A lot of times what we do is we cut everything out, right? We go cold turkey. And so we're like, we're not going to have any of those treats, or we're not going to do any of those things. And our brain immediately feels unsafe. Our brain immediately goes on high alert and is like, what is Abby trying to do to me? She's taking away my popcorn. She's taking away my Coke. She's taking away my coffee in the morning. And it makes our brains on a primitive level feel unsafe because we're in the habit of these things. And it gives us a physiological boost with just the carbs and the caffeine. And so now we've put our bodies into a state of stress, not only at a physical level, but also at a mental, psychological level. And so if we can just say, you know what, I'm not going to take away my popcorn or my Coke or my coffee, but I am going to add in water. So I might go and get that coffee on the way to work, but I'm also going to make sure that I bring my water bottle and I fill it up so I have water to drink. It might be that, I'm going to have a Coke at lunch, but instead of having a Coke at supper time, or with my dinner, I'm going to, have a tea or another water. And so it's really about adding good things in, and eventually that will crowd out the rest of the things that you want to change. And so that is something that has been really, really helpful for me personally, but also for my clients and for my students. It's something that we all can do without having to really, upset ourselves or cause undue stress. So it works like this in terms of a cue, routine, and reward. You could insert anything here, but a lot of times it's a thing that we feel in our bodies that we just need and we don't know why. It could be because of our blood sugar or our energy, or it could be something like we're feeling overwhelmed, which I'm sure we all feel overwhelmed from time to time. So the cue is that maybe our blood sugar drops, maybe it's in the afternoon, and it's that post-lunch slump where you start to have different, expectations. You're maybe transitioning, leaving work for the afternoon. Maybe it's that you're still trying to digest your food, but your blood sugar drops and you get that low energy feeling, and you go to the vending machine, right? It's usually around 3 o'clock. That's also where our hormones start to shift. So our cortisol levels typically start to shift around 3 o'clock or so, and we can have a real physiological need for some extra energy. So knowing that about ourselves, instead of heading for the vending machine or the break room for, a snack or donut or coffee, you can replace that routine with going and maybe getting a water, or maybe going and taking a walk. And that can help with the cue that your blood sugar is low and your energy is low, just by doing something to replace that. Otherwise, you end up with that donut or coffee, and the reward is that your blood sugar goes up because you get that caffeine, you get that carb, and you get a little bit of a break. And so again, just think about how that works for you. And of course, we use the low energy, the coffee and the caffeine. I think we all probably have been there. And those are things that we can start to make different changes. We can start to prepare ahead of time for those setbacks. So a healthier loop, like I just mentioned, could be if you feel overwhelmed, then get up and maybe go stretch, maybe go take a lap around the building, maybe go chat with a coworker or a friend, maybe take a 5 or 10 minute, break and, log on to your email or check something, watch a funny TikTok video or something like that. Break that cycle with something besides eating or, whatever that happens to be for you. Just giving some good weight loss and wellness examples, because that's usually what's on our minds in January. Then the reward becomes the break itself and not necessarily the snack or the carb or the caffeine. And that's something that if you are drinking a lot of caffeine or eating a lot of carbs and sugary foods, it's going to take a little bit of time for you to actually transition, because we can become dependent on that sugar, that caffeine, that carb. So definitely give yourself grace as you're making changes. And again, remember that you can apply this to any type of habit that you want to set or habit that you want to change. So habit stacking, I mentioned earlier, is doing one keystone habit that you always do and then adding something in. So when I was looking at doing habit change in my life a few years ago, I was buying all of these supplements, because a lot of times we buy things because it's our kind of our fantasy self, what we imagine ourselves to be, it's our dream life. And so we buy things for our dream or fantasy life that we don't necessarily actually do. And so in my mind, I wanted to be a really healthy person. I wanted to start to really, get into fitness and health. And so I knew that I wanted to buy some supplements, and I bought a ton of supplements, but didn't take them, really regularly. And so I had vitamins in my nightstand, I had vitamins in my bathroom, I had vitamins in my laundry room, I had vitamins in the kitchen, and there was no centralized place for them. And my husband joked and said, "Are we taking supplements or are we selling supplements? Because we look like a supplement store." And that was, a joke for a while, but it was a really good wake up call for me, is that I was buying the supplements, but I wasn't really taking them. And that should be obvious, but it wasn't in the moment. And so that one little joke made me think about, where all do I have these vitamins and why am I buying them, but I'm not taking them? They're really expensive. That's not something I want to do. And so what I did is I put the vitamins that I wanted to take by my toothbrush with a cup, so that when I went to brush my teeth in the morning, I could take my supplements. And I did that because I had read James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, and he had talked about habit stacking. But remember what I said, knowledge does not equal habit change. I knew to do that, but I hadn't implemented it yet. And so I started doing that every morning. And what I found after a few weeks, so that led into a few months, is that I didn't have to think about the act of brushing my teeth and adding the supplements in. They just kind of naturally started to happen together. And then I added another habit and another habit. So then by the time that I started looking at my habit stack, it started with brushing my teeth and taking supplements. And then it moved on to exercise and meditation and journaling and all the other things that I had told myself I wanted to do. So I really encourage you to think about, what is your keystone habit in the morning, and what is the goal or the new habit that you want to associate with that keystone habit? Is there something that you could start to work on this week? So other habit stack examples, you could do something like, when I turn the shower on and you're waiting for it to get warm, you could do squats. When you wake up, you could make a gratitude list. When you get in your car, you could take a few minutes to meditate or take some deep breaths. When you go and get your coffee, you could refill your water bottle. When you go into work, you could take the stairs. When you sit down for lunch, you could take some deep breaths and really be mindful. That helps with intuitive eating, and it helps get your digestion in and your digestive system into a place where it's better able to digest the foods that you're eating. A lot of times we say you are what you eat, but you really are what you digest. So a lot of people eat in a stressed out state. They're eating at their desk or they're eating in their car, and your stress hormones are so high that you're actually not able to get into the place where you can actually digest your food because you're so stressed. So those are the kinds of things you really want to question. Where are those changes that I want to make? So James Clear says all big things come from small beginnings, and that's so true. We often think about we need to take these big leaps, these giant steps forward, and sometimes trying to move the needle forward that much actually becomes a hindrance to us. So when you think about making some improvements, this is his kind of rule or principle of 1% better every day. You really want to think about, how can I just be 1% better than I was yesterday? And you really start to see the exponential growth of making a 1% better decision. It also really speaks to not comparing yourself to other people. So often we compare ourselves or our experiences to others. It's really easy to do. It's human nature for us to do that. But we have to remember that we're on our own path and our own journey. And it's not about comparing ourselves or being better than someone else, right? It's not that I do better squats than my friend does. Is my squat better today than it was yesterday? Not is my squat better than my best friend who I'm working out with. And so that is something that when you think about competition, we can be really competitive. A lot of us have competitive spirits and kind of competitive natures. Try to think about it as being a competition for just improving and up leveling with you and not with other people. So you also want to think about identifying your triggers. So what are the things that make you do the habit unconsciously, right? What are the things that you see this as an issue and you want to make a change, but you continue to have this type of trigger? I always like to give an example, because I have young children, of supper time. A lot of times, you're just getting in the door, you're trying to put supper on the table. For us, the dog's usually barking. There's usually a TV or a tablet making noise. For some reason, that seems to be when everyone calls or rings your doorbell too, and it just kind of can feel chaotic. And so those could be the kinds of triggers that if you're having a stressful night, a lot of times 5 p.m. to 6 p.m., that dinner time hour can be really stressful. The trigger might be the doorbell, the phone ringing, the tablet, the dog barking. Those could all be triggers for you having a stress response. And so one of the things that you could do is maybe that you let the dog in the backyard. Maybe you say there's no tablets at dinner time. Maybe you turn the ringer down on your phone so you don't hear it. Those are all things that you can do to make the situation better once you know what the triggers are. So you can do that with wellness, you can do that with weight loss, you can do that with professional goals. Maybe it's stressful hearing the Outlook, chime when you get a new email. Maybe you need to block out some time in your day to have that email closed so that you can have some really deep and focused work and not be interrupted. Maybe it's that you're distracted by noise and you need to close your door for a couple of hours a day so that you're not getting distracted if you're in an office with a door. Maybe if you're in an office space that's shared, maybe it's that you wear, something like earbuds or headphones or something like that to block out the noise so that you can have some focused work. There's always a workaround. And that's one thing I want to really encourage you when you're writing down these triggers. What your brain is probably automatically going to do is it's probably going to think of all the reasons why that won't work, right? So I've had many jobs and situations where I didn't have a dedicated office with a door. And so if I had heard that on the call, I would have said, well, I can't do that because I don't have a door. So that's not going to work for me. So I want to encourage you, if you have that thought, which our brains are good at thinking that, right? We always come up with reasons why something won't work because our brain is hardwired for that. It's hardwired to look for problems or challenges because that's what the job of the brain is. It's to keep us alive and to keep us safe. So it looks for those problems. So when you have that thought, question it. Say, okay, well, I don't have a door, but is there something else I could do? Well, yeah, I could put my AirPods in and I could listen to, music or something, or I could get noise canceling headphones, or I could wear, maybe I could wear earplugs for an hour or so. So there's always a workaround. It may not be perfect, but we're not perfect people, and that's okay. So think about when your habitual behavior happens. When is that trigger happening? What time of day? Where are you? How do you feel when that happens? Are other people involved? So my example at dinner time, that's a dog and kids and a spouse, or maybe it's at work and it's a coworker. So who is involved? Why are they involved? Is that something that happens regularly? And is there anything that's happening right before or after something else that's contributing to the experience? Those are the kinds of things you want to do when you write down your triggers. So when you know your triggers, then you can really start to take steps to change and make different decisions about how you're going to react, right? So for me, the dinner time example is a real example from my own life where I felt like I was always kind of on the brink of, stress and chaos trying to get my kids fed at night when I came in from work. And so some of the things I mentioned, like we put the dog in his kennel or we have him go outside and we have no tablets, and I turn my phone on silent, and we turn the house phone where the ringer is silent, and we have everyone designated as a helper. And the reason I started doing those things, which may seem really, obvious to you, is that I looked at the triggers. What are the things that are causing dinner time to be so stressful? And then we took those things out of the scenario so that they don't have an opportunity to influence dinner time, right? So we have all of those things accounted for. So writing down those triggers and then writing down what you want to achieve by doing the habits that you're wanting to change can really be helpful. If you have an intention for that, if there's a why behind the why that you've identified, write that down. And then list all of the reasons why this habit change is important to you, why you want to make this change. And then because our brains are so good at this, you probably are not even going to have to think about this too much, but you're going to identify those obstacles and challenges that pop up for you. Like I don't have a door, or maybe my dog can't go in the backyard. What could I do? Or maybe I need to get, some headphones so that I can make it less stressful. Maybe wearing headphones while you cook dinner would be helpful. Those are the kinds of things that you can start to come up with solutions and troubleshoot if you know what those obstacles and challenges are. And in the moment, you know what they are, but sometimes when you get out of the situation, you're like, I don't know why that's so stressful. You probably do. It's just that you haven't taken time to think about it. Then you can start to draft a plan. Okay. So maybe you need earphones or AirPods, or maybe you need something that is going to help you achieve that goal. Draft a plan and think of those solutions, write those down, kind of make a to-do list. And then seek accountability. So maybe it's someone at work, maybe it's your best friend, maybe it's your spouse or partner, maybe it's your mom, whoever, maybe it's a neighbor. Think of someone that also wants to do some habit change. When you think of an accountability partner, sometimes you just think of the people you talk to every day, but it's really helpful if you find someone who's like-minded and who also wants to make changes, because they're going to hold you more accountable to what you're doing than someone who isn't as invested and who doesn't understand why you're making those changes. So be sure to share the why for what you're trying to do, and that will help them hold you more accountable. And go ahead and negotiate with them. Like, if I don't text you by this day and time, please send me a message and check on me. Those are the kinds of things that really help keep you in alignment with your goals. And then follow through the plan. If you're like me, it's a lot of fun to make plans and to think about all the stuff, but it's less fun to actually implement the plan. And so that may be true for you. I bet it is for a lot of us. So actually follow the plan and then kind of track and evaluate your progress. And then when you maintain it, you're kind of maintaining that momentum of motivation that sometimes is fleeting. So you'll see that when you take action, your motivation naturally follows. But just remember that we're not relying on motivation. It does help, but we really want to just focus on that discipline and those routines and rhythms that we're setting in place. Okay. So when you set your intention, a lot of times we think things like, I just want to be the best version of myself by my next birthday. I have said that over and over and over again, but it's really not easy to measure, because what is the best version of me? So when you think about setting intentions, really think of something that's specific and that's measurable, that's attainable, that's realistic, and that is timely, it's time sensitive. So I could say something like, I want to track the number of times that I work out, and I want to increase how often I work out by X number of workouts before my next birthday. That's something that you actually can look at and see, did I actually do that? And that will give you more courage and momentum to make other changes. So Wayne Dyer talks a lot about motivation and thoughts behind motivation, kind of the mindset aspect of motivation and habit change. And he says our intention creates our reality. So if we have made up our mind that we want to set a goal and that this is the why for that goal, we often will follow through with it more if we have thought through that process and if it aligns with our values. So when you think about long-term goals, we think about maybe a year-long goal. What is it that you want to achieve this year? How do you want to feel when you complete that goal? Because remember, a lot of times we really are after the feeling of what the goal is, not necessarily the goal. I'll give you an example of that in just a minute. But short-term goals, then if you have this year-long goal, it's a long-term goal, then what do you need to do monthly? And then what do you need to do weekly to reach that goal? And then if you're breaking it down even further, then what do I need to do every day to meet that goal? So if you want to exercise or you want to run a marathon, right, you've got to sign up for the marathon, but then you also have to start training. And so training doesn't happen, once, it happens every day. What do I need to be eating? What do I need to be doing for exercise? How many miles do I need to be running? How much sleep do I need to be getting so that I can repair my muscles and have energy to actually complete the exercise? Those are the kinds of things that are really going to propel you forward, because when we set these big lofty goals, we often don't break down the monthly, weekly, and daily things we need to do to achieve those. We also sometimes set these arbitrary goals that really don't move us toward what we're after in terms of how we want to feel when we achieve them. So I usually set goals like, I want to read 40 books this year, right? And really, what that goal was about is that as a child and as a young adult, I identified myself as being a reader, right? I believed that I was a reader, that was something I enjoyed. And so that was a part of my identity. And then I had children, and then I went to work full time, and I went back to school, and I didn't read for pleasure anymore. I just read to do my work and my graduate school work. And so I wanted to get back to a place where I felt like I could call myself a reader. And so I set the goal to read, an outlandish number of books, considering I wasn't reading any at the time for that year. And I got to the end of the year and I hadn't read all those books, but I had read more books than I had read the year before. But instead of being excited about that goal, I was like, well, I didn't meet my goal. So I had this all or nothing mentality. So there we go. I've already ruined the year. I didn't meet the goal. But what I want you to really think about, and what I had to learn, is that the object of the goal was not that I read 30 books or 40 books or 100 books, right? That was not the point. The point is who you become by meeting the goal. And so the point of the reading of the 30 books was not to read 30 books, but it was to be a reader again. And so I had actually achieved my goal. The bigger why of why I wanted to do that was achieved. It's just not in the numbers that I had hoped. And so you can shift your mindset on those kinds of things as you start to think about and reflect on where you are and where you want to be. So do you want to be a reader? One book will get you there. It doesn't have to be 100. So apply that to your own goals and see if that doesn't make a big difference in how you feel about them. You also want to just kind of take time to map out your goals. So be really clear and schedule your goals. So if you don't schedule your goals, then they're probably not going to happen. This is what I tell my students all the time. The reason that you show up to class or you show up to work is because it's on your calendar, right? The reason that we all go to the dentist and the eye doctor and we keep those appointments is because we have a specific day and a specific time, and we have external accountability, right? We're going to be charged if we don't show up. We're going to receive a call if we don't show up, and it's in our calendars. But the really, really, really important stuff, like for students, I give this example, they're studying that they need to do. That isn't assigned to them, right? We don't prescribe that. It's just they choose when they study. And that's one of the most important things. I want you to think about that in your own life. How many important things is it just kind of left up to when you have free time, right? You squeeze in time to have a date. You squeeze in time to, maybe go do something fun with your kids. You kind of are waiting for margin in your day, your week, your month to do those fun things, to do those kind of life-giving things. Self-care is another great example. But if you start to really look at your calendar and you start to say, okay, at this date and time, I'm going to do self-care, or this date and time, I'm going to have a date night with my spouse or partner, or this date and time, I'm going to take my kids to the zoo to go and visit the zoo animals, whatever it is. If you assign a date and time, you're going to be much more likely to complete that task. And those are the kinds of things that are going to help move the needle forward on your goals. If your goals are, to exercise or quality family time or whatever it is, make those kinds of things applicable to your particular situation. But I hope that offers some inspiration. And then track your goals. So every day you probably won't have time, and certainly not every day are you going to have motivation to check on your goals. But set a time that works for you to think about the week ahead and to think about the previous week. So I do this on Sunday night where I look at my calendar and I see what's on the schedule for the week. I've done my grocery shopping, my meal planning. I've scheduled everything out for me and for my family. And I look at my work schedule. I check in with my email. And then I think about the week before. What worked? What didn't work? What do I want to change about this next week? And I take about an hour every Sunday afternoon to do that. Other people do it at different times, but I think it's really important that you close out the previous week either on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday before heading into a new week. If you're waiting until Monday to do that check-in, or if you're never doing that check-in, you can kind of get in this response mode where you're not really being proactive, you're just kind of responding to the next situation that needs your attention. So if you can kind of get this plan together on the weekend, then you'll be better prepared to handle unexpected things that come out through the week. So, and then I always say, rinse and repeat it as often as you need to, because you're going to need to make adjustments to whatever you choose to do. It's just how life works. We all are in different seasons of life, and different seasons of life call for different, plans and kind of approaches to meeting your goals. So definitely think about how you're going to make this work when you need to make a transition. So make habits easy is another thing that I really want to point out to you, because we don't like to do hard things. So if you're going to cook a healthy breakfast, if that's something that's important to you, then get the things out that you need the night before, and get it set up, right? You don't want to cook breakfast in a kitchen that's not clean or tidy, or that you can't find the ingredients. So, clean up the kitchen the night before, lay out the breakfast plates and cups, and get everything prepared as much as you can. You're going to be much more likely, when you wake up kind of tired and sleepy the next day, you're going to be much more likely to make that healthy breakfast than to just grab something on your way out the door or find yourself in a drive-through. If you want to read more at night, then put the book on your pillow or put the book on your bed, so that you're more likely to reach for that instead of your phone, right? If you want to send a thank you note, then keep a stack of thank you notes in your office. I have thank you notes in my office, I have them at home, and I have them in my car, because a lot of times we live in our cars, and you want to write a thank you note, but you're not where you can get to those things. So just keep the things that are going to help make the goals easy with you, right? Drink more water. You're going to make sure that you actually bring your water bottle with you so that you can refill it. Those are all ways that you can make habits easy to do. And the more that you can eliminate the worry or stress from your brain, the more likely you'll be able to make those goals achievable. So you really want to focus on systems over goals. So this is always a good example for us, because we're at the University of Alabama. When we want to think about winning a championship and we have that as a goal, it's not just that we say that we want to win a championship, right? We show up, we recruit players that are going to help us with those goals. We have practices, we manage the team, we look at the films from the previous games, right? We look at the opponents' films so that we know how they're playing. We have a game plan in place, right? If you want to be an entrepreneur or a musician, there are systems that help us achieve those goals. So rather than just focusing on the goal, which is really the outcome, you want to think about the system, which are going to be those steps, the routines, the rhythms, the things that you're doing every day, every week, every month that move you forward. This is a sheet that we're happy to share with you. It's one that I use when I'm goal setting, and it really gives you an opportunity to do some of the work that we've talked about: writing down your goal, identifying an accountability partner, thinking of a positive intention or affirmation related to your goal, thinking about steps to accomplish your goal. So just kind of like a brain drain or brain dump of the things that you know you need to be doing. And then you can set a timeline. What is the deadline I want to achieve this goal? Maybe it's your next birthday. Maybe that's a good, range for you. And then when you look at the things that you kind of brainstormed, what is it that I need to do to accomplish this big goal? Look at 4 things that you can just transfer from this list and prioritize them, right? So this is an unprioritized, just brain drain. And then this is your prioritized. Okay, here are the first things I'm going to do, right? So if it says you want to run that marathon, then it may be that you sign up for the marathon. It may be that you go and get fitted for new running shoes. It may be that you find an accountability partner to go work out with. And maybe you need some new workout gear. Maybe you don't have anything to exercise in. Or maybe it's that you need to download an app so that you can track your mileage. Those are the kinds of examples of your mini goals. And then you'll know that you met these by, did I actually send that text message to the accountability partner? Did I actually register for that? So these are the ways that you actually track that. And then your start date, when you look at a goal, I always start with today. And then you can put the goal where it makes sense, right? Your birthday, the marathon race date, whatever it is. And then map these 4 mini goals, put them here, and assign them a date at 2 or 3 weeks apart, so that you can really think about, have I made progress toward these goals? This works professionally, personally, health and wellness. It does not matter. It works for almost anything. So these are some examples if you're going to start, looking at losing 10% of your body weight. Well, that's really achievable in 3 months' time. So think about 3 months from now. And then who's going to be your accountability partner? I nourish my body and give it rest. That's a really great positive affirmation if you're wanting to take care of your body, right? It's not that you want to lose 10%. That's pretty arbitrary. We know that that helps you feel better and, you can improve your health outcomes. But, what is really the intention behind it? It's not that you want to lose 10%. It's that you really want to take good care of your body. You want to feel good. You want to, feel like you're resting. This is kind of that area where we drained everything, right? Because you don't want to join a gym the first, couple of months you start working out. You want to make sure that you've established a good habit first. So do the simple things first, right? Step on the scale, find a walking buddy, start walking 30 minutes a day, a few times a week. Decide on how you're going to, meal plan, what's your nutrition going to be, and then tangibly track those things. So these are the ways that you would actually map that out. And like I said, we can share these documents with you. So preparing for success, you really want to think about honoring your own wisdom. You know your body best and you know your limitations. Try to remove the triggers that you identified earlier, the things that you can change in your environment and your life. Do those things. Choose to replace as many of the unhealthy habits as you can by adding things in, not taking things out. Really visualize and see yourself changing. Imagine the you at the end of the finish line at the marathon. Imagine you at the end of the year when you have started reading books again. Imagine you, having done something intentional with your family or your kids or your loved ones, a few times a year. Imagine yourself as your best version of yourself meeting those goals, and that really will help inspire you. It will help motivate you, but it also will help ground that intention. Monitor your inner critic. I think we probably all have an inner critic. Really start small and take those baby steps, like I mentioned. Anticipate setbacks. So we often talk about those as being pre-mortems and post-mortems. Thinking about pre-mortem, what could go wrong, post-mortem, reflecting on what didn't go as well as we wanted to, what we would like to change. Remember that change takes time. Reward yourself along the way. The more that you can have built-in rewards, and these don't have to be expensive, it doesn't have to be food related, but just build in some rewards. Maybe it's coffee with your best friend. Maybe it's a new pair of tennis shoes when you complete your marathon. Those are the kinds of things that it's going to help that dopamine cycle that you get. You get a dopamine hit, that good neurotransmitter that gets happy and helps you be happy when you have that carb or that caffeine. You can build in those dopamine drips by having a built-in reward system. And then practice really good self-care and mindfulness. So nothing is ever achieved by being mean to yourselves, right? If you had someone that was in your life that was really mean to you, that was really critical of you, very negative toward you, you would not cooperate with that person. You probably wouldn't choose to be around that person. But we do that to ourselves all the time, right? We can be really mean to ourselves. We can say not fun things to ourselves. We can be really punitive when we don't meet goals. And those are the kinds of things that even though we're doing it to ourselves, we're not going to be cooperative and we're not going to meet those goals. It's really self-sabotage because we're usually more prepared to stay stuck doing the same old thing that we've always done rather than being kind of courageous and brave enough to make changes, because it does cause so much stress for our minds and for our bodies. So it's really good to know how the brain works when we try to change. There was a study in the European Journal of Social Psychology that found that it really takes 66 days to form a new habit. So we often say 21 days and people will give up after 3 weeks. And it really takes closer to 2 months to actually form a good habit where you have that discipline, where it's automated. So don't give up on your goals too soon. We also have some different steps for building a routine around habit stacking. So again, these are some great things that you can reference. Start with 5 minutes. go ahead and list out kind of the logistics of what you're going to do. And then really start to think about, having repetition and adding to those stacks as you move forward. And this is a great habit stacking book and resource. So developgoodhabits.com. And again, we can share the PowerPoint with you if you would like. So how do you break a so-called bad habit? Again, it's going to be by doing the things that you do to create a good habit. It's reducing your exposure. It's reframing your mindset. It's really making things difficult. So make it difficult to have those snacks at night. Make it difficult to not work out, right? Put all your things out where you have to make a conscious choice not to put your workout clothes on. Get that accountability partner. And you can even create a habit contract. So you can sign it with yourself, or you can sign it and give it to your accountability partner, but that can be really helpful too. Tracking your habits is also another great thing to do. So you can list your habits here, maybe toothbrushing or supplements or exercise, and then you can mark them off the days of the month. And this is available as a free resource at the Paper Trail Design. There's tons of free printables online though, so just do a Google search and you'll find some of those that may fit your life better. There's another great resource and someone that I really recommend following on social media, Katie Moore, and Katie Moore Wellness is her IG profile. She has some great resources and talks a lot about mindset and habit tracking. Not affiliated, but I think she's very inspirational. And she has this Makeover My Daily routine. So when you sign up for her newsletter or follow her on Instagram, she has some great resources like this. This is one example. So it's the current habit, which is you brush your teeth. But the thing that you want to do is maybe you give yourself a compliment. Mel Robbins, if y'all are familiar with her, she's a motivational speaker. She brushes her teeth and then she gives herself a high five in the mirror. So every time she sees herself, her reflection, she high fives herself in the mirror and tells herself that she's doing a good job. So very, very similar. Mel Robbins has a lot of great resources and tools as well. She's all over social media, and she has a website, a YouTube. So definitely check her out as well. Here's an example of a habit contract. So you're putting your goals, you're putting the things that you're going to do. What are you going to do if you don't exercise? Maybe it's that you don't have a treat, or maybe it's that you delay the treat. And then you can sign and date and have your accountability partner do the same. And then there's some places where you can kind of think about your goals. So I just want to remind you that finding balance looks different for everyone. Certainly for everyone on the call, we have different goals, different needs, different resources, and different challenges. And so these are stacked stones called cairns, and it's just an art form that you often will see, especially out in the West Coast area. These are all in balance and they're all stacked stones, but they all look very different, just like we are. So just reminding you of your uniqueness. And we will go over a couple of minutes. If you need to leave, please don't worry about getting credit for your attendance. That's fine, but I will go ahead and finish out so that we can get to your questions. Just remember to think about creating awareness around, the negative beliefs or mindsets that you have so that you can start to make changes. Seek out medical care if you find that you're having some physical or mental health challenges that are standing in the way of you making good habit changes. Pursue that positive mindset. Develop a plan to take good care of yourselves, to be able to practice self-care and stress management, because that's really at the heart of what you will need to do to be able to have long-term sustainable change. Mindfulness and meditation does not have to look like you're sitting on the floor, kind of crisscross applesauce, doing, a long meditation. It could just be closing your eyes. It could be listening to your favorite music. It could be journaling. It could be, breathing mindfully at dinner time or at lunchtime. Those are the kinds of things that really bring in mindfulness and meditation. It doesn't have to be fancy or expensive. Let's go back to practical tools. So Cultivate What Matters has a Power Sheets planner. Brendan Bouchard has a high performance planner, and Rachel Hollis has a Start Today journal. These are some examples of how you can start to look for free resources or paid resources that really support your reflective practice and thinking about goal setting and habit formation. And they all have a mindset component in these three, but certainly plain paper or the notes app on your phone will work just fine. And then here's some other useful resources. Remember to practice grounding. Headspace and Motivation are two apps that you can get for motivation and for inspirational quotes and for some mindfulness. There's a yoga for beginners for stress relief on YouTube, Yoga with Adrienne. It's totally stress-free on Spotify. And then a 5-4-3-2-1 grounding technique that you can use to kind of help reset and recenter. So successful people are simply those with successful habits, and I truly believe that. So we'd love for you to follow us on social media. These are all of the ways that you can connect with us. And if you have any interest in health and life coaching, so that's a free resource to you as a university employee, please feel free to reach out and I'll be happy to provide you with some more information. I do those for health and life coaching for our UA community. So I'm going to go to the questions, how to lower triglycerides. Okay, that's a great question. I have a wellness webinar that is archived on cardiovascular health, and it's about 45 minutes long. It absolutely goes into all the details there, but reach out if you need more resources. I'll be happy to share those. And I'm going to the chat. Thank you so much for the kind feedback. Thank you all so much. I'm going to make sure we don't have any questions. Yes, absolutely. These will be archived, so you can absolutely find all of this information. And thank you, Miranda, for sharing the goal setting sheet. Thank you all so much. I don't see any other questions or comments, but I'm going to keep scrolling just to make sure. Wonderful. Well, thank you all so much for being here and for being a part of our webinar. I always try to pack it full of information because I want it to be something that's really meaningful and useful, practical for you. So definitely reach out if you have questions. And if there were any things that we didn't cover and that you'd like to see us add for this type of presentation, please do let me know that as well. I will make sure that y'all don't have any more questions or comments in the chat, but please feel free to go if you need to. Thank you all so much. And best wishes on a happy and healthy 2022. I think it's going to be one of our best years yet. Great. Thank you so much, y'all.